Welcome to Beyond the Pain, a place for parents of estranged adult children to find peace and healing. In each episode, I hope to share stories to help you during some of your darkest hours, to bring this out of the shadows and stop being ashamed, then to build you up and inspire you to love yourselves even more.
It's a boy,
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of kind of bad feeling on my part that it was so difficult to be able to come and see the kid and spend time with them and stuff like that. And I have to take responsibility. I lost my cool and I said things I shouldn't have said, and everything I said was honest.
Right.
It wasn't said in a very good setting or in a very good way.
Yeah.
And
well, it's like, we're human, first of all.
right.
Just because, yes, we're the parents, that doesn't mean we're perfect.
Right.
And you owned it. So, I don't know what else,
Yeah. And if I look at my feelings about it, it's like,
Yeah.
I have to own the responsibility. Like, I was too easy on those kids. I like the way I was raised. I went way far the other way. So I was like enabling them, and I didn't make them perform, and I didn't make them do things. And so they knew that they didn't respect me. Basically, is what happened. And I worked hard and I provided, and but I just did a poor job in that area. So I have to look at that. I'm responsible for not following through with things, and me and my wife were not on the same, page. And I'm getting better and better and better at, holding them accountable, which they don't like. So that they're peeved about me holding them accountable. They don't want to be held accountable, but I set it up that way that they weren't accountable, but now they are. Now they're adults and they're accountable. So I have to take responsibility for that piece of it.
Yeah. Well, I think some with it, and I hate to be such a blanket statement, but some with their generation is just that way, there's always exceptions, but I think overall, a lot of them do feel that way. They just don't want to be held to the fire about things.
I kind of get the vibe. It's like, if you can't do anything for me, then I got no use for you.
Yeah, which is unfortunate.
I think I know he loves me. There's something, down there, but he's just not that important, Like, my relationship with my father. There were some pretty brutal things, but I never that didn't come into my world that I was going to disown him. It just didn't. I had a lot of respect for him, but he held me accountable all the time, every day, which in hindsight was. And then, growing up, you're thinking, man, he was such a hard ass, and I have all these problems because he was such a hard ass.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to do that to my kids. I'm not going to be such a hard ass, And then it's like, I don't know. What are you going to do?
It's like darned if you do and darned if you don't sometimes, So like you said, you went to total opposite to the opposite end, and it still caused issues. So,
sure.
But like I was telling Michelle, and I've told a bunch of other people, my wife and I used to joke with our youngest daughter, who is 21, she'll be 22 in September, that we had everything that we did was in the parents' handbook. Well, obviously that was not true, So there's no handbook, there's no rules, I just feel like, though, if, I told Michelle, I tell other people that if you are doing it if you're doing what you're doing out of coming from a good place, wanting the best for them, doing it out of love for them, then that's all you can do. You're not going to do it perfectly, but at least you're not, there's a few things that obviously there are bad parents out there. I don't feel like we're among those because, we're not physically, and I know mentally abusive is kind of a gray area sometimes, but or sexually abuse them. I feel like if you don't do those things, then you're ahead of the game.
Right.
you know, everything else can be talked about or forgot about or whatever, but they don't see it that way.
Yeah, the
It
world's
would
a rough
appear.
place, man. I mean,
Yeah,
the world, it's a hard place. You just got to learn to deal,
it is. It is. I mean, my mom was a single mom her entire, well, I mean, since I couldn't remember. So she held down 2 and 3 jobs,
Mhm.
in the 70s and 80s. So it's like, it's just not an easy place. So you got to do what you got to do. So,
Well, I think even like my granddaughter, she's 11, and I think she has feelings of like her dad abandoned her. Her dad died,
mm,
but she's still mad
oh,
at him. For dying. It's like the way the mind works. Like, you
yeah,
know, you can't help that. He's dead. It's like game
right,
over. You know,
right.
uh, but she can still have this. Why does everyone else have a dad and I don't? It's like,
Sure.
why is that
That's
happening
got
to
to
me?
be tough. I
Just
mean, mine died when I was 17.
right.
So, and I really didn't know him because he left
Yeah.
long before that. But,
Mhm.
still, it was like, okay, now it's done. I've
Sure.
there's no chance now. So,
There's no
um,
reconciliation at this point. Yeah.
no, no. So that's tough. And it makes you, I mean, it makes you who you are, but sometimes it's not necessarily the greatest things,
Yeah.
at least growing up.
Sure.
You don't feel that way. At least I didn't. Um, so, did you experience anything like physical manifestations of the grief or the
Um,
annoyance?
um, Physical manifestations with my son that died.
Yeah.
I started. I know Michelle talked about accidents and injuries.
Yeah.
I experienced a few really strange occurrences. Like I hurt myself several times. I
Gotcha.
did things. I did it like when in looking back, I did things and I looked and I said, "That's probably not very safe. I shouldn't be doing that." And I did it anyway. It's like,
Right. Right.
and I was like, "Yeah, I knew that was going to happen."
Yeah.
Um, but it was kind of, I mean, it was sort of unconscious. But in hindsight, I was like, "Oh yeah." When my granddaughter, we were super close to her after my son had died, and she went. Her mother took her to Turkey, so she was gone out
Oh my goodness.
thousands of miles away. And there was a branch stuck in the tree, and I had my wife hold the ladder, and I was going to pull this branch out of the tree, and she's like, "Oh, I don't think you should do that," and I was like, "Whatever." And I grabbed that. Well, I pulled a huge branch out of the tree, like a 20-foot branch came flying down and hit me in the
Holy
head.
cow.
I had to duck,
Oh my.
put my hand over my head and it smacked me in the head. And that was one of those things that was like, I was just really careless. I wouldn't have normally did that. I just,
Right.
I just was like, whatever. I don't.
Almost didn't care at that point.
But with the estrangement, um, it's been just more emotional, like, and it's been more like vacillating between beating myself up for being a failure and anger at them for being not as caring as I'd like them to be and not as willing to reconcile and to work things out and to have a happy
Right.
family. And I'm sure I have responsibility in where they're at. However, like I'm always willing and able to be like, hey, let's make this right. What do you need from me? I'll fix
Right.
it. You know.
Yeah,
Uh,
that was tough for me because it was September when it started that year of
yeah.
2016. And so, I knew Fast and Furious were coming up holidays. And I'm
Right.
like, and we always did things in the holidays. And
Right.
so I gave it a couple weeks and I'm like, okay, we need to get this settled. Let's have a conversation. And that's when we were supposed to have a conversation, but then because my youngest daughter was going to be around, she was 16. I'm not sure where I was supposed to put her, but because she was going to be around, they took issue, and then it just snowballed and
It just
went
kind of
on for two and a
escalated.
half years. Yeah,
Right.
and I'm
Yeah.
like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
So, um, But
Well, the estrangement with my son has definitely escalated between, his girlfriend, who is the mother of his new baby,
yeah,
and certain things that have been said, and pressures and things she didn't like, and
yeah,
it's escalated, and then my little blow up just put the nail in it, just
yeah,
so. I mean, we could see it coming. Tried to pull it back and try. We were like, hey, we want to apologize for,
right,
maybe voicing an opinion that you didn't agree with, and maybe being too much of a parenting rather than, letting you make your own decisions. You're an adult, should stay out of your business. And as a parent, you're like, hey, look, I've been there, I already did that. That didn't work very well. I
right,
can see the pain coming. Let me give you a little advice, and you can avoid this pain, and you can
right.
do better than I did. But I think they take that as meddling in their life, and mind your own business. And what do you know? Look what you did. You weren't
For
you weren't a
sure.
perfect parent. So I'm definitely open to reconciling.
Sure.
Just working with being okay with it how it is now.
Yeah.
That the totally thing is living in the present moment, right? So all of your anxieties of the past and your fear of the future, well, the past doesn't even really exist. It's just going on in your mind. The
Right.
anxiety, the future is just something you're projecting, and you're worrying about things that may never happen,
Yeah.
and if you live like right in the moment, it's a really good, beautiful place to be. And if you can stay there, my
If you
mind
can
does
stay
not.
there.
Yeah, my mind doesn't want to stay there. My mind wants to be in the
Yeah.
past, or out in the future. So it's definitely a practice, like to stop
Yeah.
being,
It is.
being present. Yeah.
I'm glad you guys reminded me, because I mean I've heard, I've read part of the book. I'm not a huge
Yeah.
reader, so reading
Sure.
for me is I really have to sit down and focus. It's a good I have heard him speak a number of times, and
Mhm.
I'm glad I
Yeah.
reminded of that, because yeah, staying in the present, it's really hard to do, really
It,
hard
it
to do,
takes,
but
yeah. I immersed myself. Like I had that book on an iPod. So
yeah,
if I was in the gym working out, or I was mowing the lawn, on the riding mower mowing, I was listening to this, listening to it, because
right,
from from my mind's perspective, it don't have anything to do with any of that stuff. Like it has its own game it's going to play. And
right,
so I needed to like saturate my consciousness with an alternative to what my mind wants to do. That
yeah,
subconscious just wants to roll, man. It's just going to do, it's just going to keep on going. So
yeah, it is,
I really had to immerse and I still have it. Like if I slack off at all, I mean, it just comes right back up. It's like,
yeah.
really have to stay focused on, you know, what's going on right now. Why am I off projecting a future that won't, it doesn't even exist, may never
Right.
exist,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, it's tough, but I tell people, even with the just the estrangement, and I'm part of a Facebook group, an admin in a Facebook group about estrangement, and I we tell people all the time, and if you're making strides, at least going forward most of the time, you're gonna have
Yeah.
back pedals. But if more often than not you're moving
Mhm.
forward, then I take that as a win. That's okay.
Totally has a thing. He says, you know, whether you like it or not, you are responsible. And if you don't think you're responsible, you'll know you're responsible because you will have the consequences of what happens. So you will have the consequences of your negative, thoughts, or your projections, or your, worrying, or having anxiety about the past things you've done, or,
Yeah,
you are responsible no matter what, whether you recognize it or not. You definitely have the consequences. So it's a good way to
mm,
look at
it
it.
is kind of
So,
bring you back to center a little bit, and to
right.
you know
I mean, I
um,
was look. Yeah, if you look at a small child, they haven't built all that yet. The thunder's getting pretty intense here. So,
oh, I
but
thought
if you look
figured
at a
that's what that
kid, I
was.
mean, yeah. if you look at a kid, I mean, they could walk through the room naked, you know, singing a song, um, babbling about something, you know, like they don't care about anything that you got going on, right? They're in
Nope.
the moment. They are just digging life, you know. And at some point, we just lose that, you know, like.
We do that,
So,
that innocence,
I mean, that's
that
how I'm coping with
not
that. Yeah,
caring.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. But I
but
just, you know, it's just like it's so classic. And a kid's not at the point of he's not at the age of reason either. So he's not
right.
like contemplating things either, you know. So it's maybe not the greatest analogy. However, if you're living in the moment, I mean, there's a lot of joy there. You know, it's just
Yeah.
it's a good place. Yeah.
No, there sure is. There sure is. If if your son or daughter happened to be listening at this moment, would there be, I mean, I know we've touched on it some, but would there be anything you'd want
Hmm.
to say to them?
Yeah. I mean, you know, obviously, I would tell them, you know, that I love them a lot. I love them more than they can imagine. Like the ones that have kids have a little bit of an inkling of how
Right.
much I love them. You know, um, I want what's best for them. I I want to be in a place where they can have me in their life. You know, I'm willing to work with that. Um, and then there's some, you know, but I'm not willing to compromise myself to a point of, you know, where um, that I have to compromise how I want to be in order to be in their life too. At the
Right.
same time, you know, I mean,
No,
I need some give from them also.
yeah, it has to be. I mean, yes, you could be just how they want you to be, but then you're going to be
Right.
miserable, and it's going to
Yeah.
come out,
Yeah.
just
I mean,
just like you said, those feelings earlier, you stuff them down, they're eventually going to come out. So, and it'll going to come
yeah.
out in a bad way.
Right.
So, has there been any positives that has come out of the estrangements for you guys, or for you personally?
Um, I don't know, like positive. Um, in some ways, I'm a little stronger. Maybe
Yeah.
I've maybe a little more mentally tough. You know, um, every you know, it's like every hardship creates more coping. You know,
Yeah.
as I go through one hardship after another, then I become stronger and I'm better able to deal with it without letting it crush me. You know.
Well, that's
Um,
good.
so I mean, like I know Michelle touched on this. Like the estrangement is difficult, but losing the son
Yeah.
was
Doesn't compare, I'm sure.
beyond difficult. It was
Yeah.
it was surreal. I mean, I was talking to a guy one time, and we were talking about losing our sons, and his son had been dead for like 18 years. You know,
Wow.
and you could see that. I mean, when he talked about it, you could see the pain. You know, like it was
Sure.
fresh still.
I'm sure.
So it was. It's like a. It's just like a wound that's you know, it's just like the ultimate in loss. It's just the ultimate loss. As far from my life, I mean, some people lose all of their kids in one shot in a car
Right.
accident or something. I mean, I can't imagine how.
I can't even.
Um, it's just like it's like the abyss. You know, you just go, you look in, and you're like, ooh, that's dark in there, and then you just gotta, you know, let's not go there, right? You know,
Yeah,
but
I know. And
it's so after that experience, this hurts
right.
doesn't compare. You know, it doesn't even compare.
I know Michelle said
Uh,
she, it took her, I think she said 3 years to just be able to come out of it,
right.
just be able to function again. Um, so I can't imagine.
We
So,
we had a weird. You know, she talked about like she was a she would fill her balloon with grief, right, and then and she would explode, and she would pop, and she
Right.
would fall on the floor and just in a heap and just cry
Right.
for a couple of minutes, and she'd get up and dust herself off and go along. Well, for me, I just filled my balloon up, and then I carried it with me. And when it got too full, I let a little bit out, and then I tied it back up again. And then when
Right.
it got too full, I let it out again. So I compartmentalized it. I just, I kind of kept it in a place.
Yeah.
And I mean, we had other kids, we had jobs, we had life we had to deal with.
Right.
And then I had a cathartic episode 2.5, 3 years in. I mowed the lawn and had a couple of beers, was watching the sunset, and just lost it.
Yeah.
And then it was like I popped the balloon at that point, and it lasted for 2-3 hours maybe,
Yeah.
of just alternating between just real sullen and then releasing, like crying and releasing. And for me, crying as a man, like my dad was a Marine, you don't cry, man.
Right.
You are a hard dude. You do not show any emotion. And so, but it was freeing. It was like a release, and and there was a shift from that day, from those 3 hours to the next day. I had released a ton of pain, and I don't carry that with me anymore.
Well,
Not
that's
in the
good.
way that I did. Yeah.
I
So
mean, you're always going to carry something with it, I'm sure, but
yeah,
it's not that like
it
not that
was.
balloon like you're talking about. So
It got a lot lighter. It was a lot lighter.
yeah,
It's just,
well, that's good.
and
Okay.
it was something, something I had to do. I just kept saying I'm sorry.
Yeah, of course.
And
I mean, regardless of the circumstances of how it happened, as a parent,
right.
you feel like I would imagine
Well,
you have all kinds
yeah.
of feelings about it.
I'm sure with the estrangement, they're similar. It's like, well, if I had done this differently,
Right.
would this have turned out? If I hadn't done this, would he have done that? Would he have been?
Right.
It's like the time that I was mean to him.
Yeah.
I was unreasonable. And then now he's dead, and I can't apologize.
Yeah.
Even though I was in a really good place with my son, but I had done that work, and I had gone to him and really was in a solid place with him and had deep conversations about forgiveness and and sorry that I treated you this way, and I'm sorry that I did this and that I wasn't around, and
Right.
so we were in a good place. Didn't make it that much easier, but I wasn't like I had not said my piece with him and made amends with him.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
you can never know what kind of a difference that would have made had you not been able to do that. But I have to imagine that it would have been more difficult to deal with.
I mean, it's really like it's such a final thing. It's all
Yeah.
going on in your own mind. I mean, you're talking to him. Is he hearing you? I don't know.
Right.
It's such a mind game that's going on there.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, if I could say anything to my kids right now, I would just be like, hey, I just want to be a happy family and get
Yeah.
along with everybody. And if you got problems with me, just let me know, and I'll do what's in reason that I will do to adjust my behavior so that you can have a relationship with me.
Right. I think most people would be, if the kids would be willing to do just that much and
Mhm.
meet part way, I think it would be.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you're going to have issues. Every family, every parents and kids and whatever have issues, but it doesn't have to be like this. But they have to come to it in their
Yeah.
own time, unfortunately. So,
Yeah. I still have hope that it will work out.
yeah. Well, and I like mine technically was a couple years, 2.5 years. I've seen people a lot longer. I've seen people a lot less. So again, it just depends. And, like Michelle was saying too yesterday or the other day, that with the other tragedy you had, that he was kind of the the middle person for you guys and them.
Yeah.
So they lost that too, and unfortunately, but hopefully they'll come around.
Well, and I think with the kids too that there's our loss, but there's also their loss, of losing their brother. Like
Right.
my son's loss of losing his brother, that is older than him, that they shared a room their whole lives, and
Mm,
all of them lost a big loss for them. I mean, as
yeah.
you get older and lose your parents and things go naturally, I mean, it's hard for people to lose. Like my dad died, and it was hard,
Sure.
and I thought about it a lot, but it wasn't the same. I mean, like when someone young dies, like when your brother dies when he's 22, it's just not what you expected,
Yeah.
So they have a huge loss, so
They
they're
do.
dealing with that too. And we tried to get them into counseling and therapy, and they weren't having it. They're like, I'm not having it. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Like, leave me alone. And like, where we two checked out because we were so in our grief, and they were teenagers, and
Right.
the one gal was, my daughter was 16, and the other was 18, and one was 20, so they weren't really prepared to cope with that well. I mean, they hadn't,
No, those are tough ages
and
to be living through.
yeah,
So
right. And you're dealing with your own grief, and are you giving them what they need? It's like, probably not,
probably not, but
because you're going through the worst time of your life,
yeah.
so it's just, yeah, what are you going to do?
Hopefully they never have to experience either the bad tragic loss of
Yeah,
a child or estrangement. But hopefully,
yeah,
like you said, the ones that have kids, maybe it'll click at some point and
right,
realize they need to at least have a relationship with you guys to, you know, just because. So
sure,
well, I really appreciate your time today, Paul. I know it was a little challenged with technology, but it
sure.
always seems to be sometimes. But
Well,
all
I
right,
appreciate you, Don. It's interesting to, like, I don't talk to a lot of people about. I talk to one of my brothers and stuff, but
yeah,
for the most part, I'm pretty much keep it to myself, So
yeah. I've been that way. Well, in my younger years, I was definitely that way.
sure,
As I've gotten a little older, I've gotten a little freer. But yeah,
yeah,
it's definitely something. So again, I'd like to thank Paul for being on the show today. I appreciate you being here, and I hope you all were able to glean some useful tips and information from Paul. It's always good to hear from a dad. There's not too many of us out there, or at least not too many of us that want to share our story. So thank you. Now, if you guys have any questions for me, if you'd like to hear any particular topics, feel free to give me an email at beyondthepainpodcast@gmail.com. Also, I appreciate it if you would subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Leave me any comments. I would appreciate it. So I will see you soon. Please try to remember to live beyond the pain.